Hey folks, it's Billy DKY, the truth seeker that simplifies and demystifies. This is going to be my video on was Jesus a real person, and this comes about through discussing with R.F. Welsh, YouTube name or YouTube account, and real name Robert. Basically, Robert was telling me, he said, "Hey, do you even really think that Jesus was a real person? That's really something you should question." And my short answer to it is yes, but and in discussing with him, I started really, going through the details, and I thought about what's the deepest insight on this, and basically it is Jesus' wisdom and insight wasn't that great anyway, so who cares if he's a real person? You know what I'm saying? Who cares? It don't matter. It ain't like what did he really say? What system did he leave behind that was that great? I mean, I can't even think of nothing. You know what I'm saying? Him without sin throw the first stone. I mean, I've read all that he said, all the Gospels, and the only thing that sticks in my mind is him without sin throw the first stone. I mean, that's it. I mean, forgiveness, and that's really all that he's really said that I can remember. That's really, and the meek shall inherit the earth. What the hell good does that do you in living your everyday life? It's not that wise. It's not that insightful, and it ain't really helpful. You know what I'm saying? Okay, with that said, though, I wanna talk about do I believe that Jesus was a real person? And the short answer to it is yes, and I'll go through and say why I believe that. Okay, basically we know that born of a virgin. We know that's bullshit. We also know that dead, rising from the dead, 3 days, rising again. That's more likely BS. Him being God in the flesh, I know that's BS. That's not even questionable, really. I know as well as I know of almost anything. And it's really a lot of stuff, a lot of the fairy tale crap is not true at all. It's just made up and carried forward from Egypt and other religions of the past. And I got to make my religion sound as good as yours. It's got to be more fantastical, so that stuff's obviously not true. Was Jesus a real man who walked the earth and really tried to teach people? Yes, I do believe that, and this is why I believe it. I think if the whole story was fantasy, some of the things wouldn't be there that's there. And and typically I don't go looking to prove something wrong. What happens is I go around accepting things exactly the way they are, and then all of a sudden something hits me that's out of place. Like, that's out of place. That shouldn't be there. This is a lie. So. I know how a real spiritual journey happens because I've been on it. Plus, I've read the Buddha story and read some of Jesus' story, and I've read, I haven't read much about Lao Tzu's story, but I'm pretty sure it's roughly the same because he's a super wise guy, and a lot of it just really fits well. You know what I mean? It doesn't. The part that doesn't have the fantasies in it really fits well. So and some of those stories may be modified a little. Some of the everyday living stuff may be a little bit trumped up. And again, Jesus wasn't right on everything. The stuff that he said that I think he probably said it wasn't true, I still think he said it. So let's talk about two of the miracles he supposedly did, like supposedly restoring sight to the blind guy. I can't remember the guy. It wasn't Lazarus. I think he raised him from the dead. But anyway, the guy that was blind, and he spit in his hands or in eyes and rubbed on him and he could see again. Well, in psychology now, there's a thing called conscious blindness, which means your eyes are functioning, your spirit is connected to your eyes, but you consciously don't know you can see. So, and one of the things and probably Jesus is very intuitive. Obviously, he's a very intuitive guy. However, he was probably watching that guy, and he probably could tell that the guy was able to feel around, and his unconscious was really seeing, but he consciously couldn't see. And he probably knew all he had to do is just convince the guy to see again, and boom, he would see again. So, so he just said, "Hey, if you believe, I can make you see again." And, "Yes, I believe, Lord." And, he did the things. And first he couldn't see, or maybe it was a little cloudy, and then boom, he could see. So maybe that guy had done something horrible, like molest his kids or something like that, or molested some young kid, and and he punishing himself by not being able to see, and basically Jesus come along and made him see again. So it's obvious that, to me, that's obvious what was going on there. raising people from the dead or raising Lazarus from the dead. Jesus hung out with supposedly doctors and stuff and discussing stuff with them when he was a younger kid. So he knew what life was about. He knew about pulse. And probably some people didn't know. And Lazarus probably was sick or, passed out or this or that. And Jesus was called in to go in and check on him. And, he felt the pulse. He knew he wasn't dead. He's just sleeping. Everybody's laughing because they thought he's already dead. And, raised from the dead. That story I'm not 100% sure, but that's the best I can make of it. The short answer to the question again is yes, I believe Jesus was a real person. I believe he was a real guy trying to teach. Yes, I believe that the story's there's been fabrications and additions to the story and modifications to stories to where it's maybe not even close to true to what Jesus originally said, and we may not even have the real story of Jesus even if you get that book that came out recently in the last several years, the Lost Testaments of the Bible. So I bought it, but I just couldn't read it. It just wasted my time. I knew it was. So anyway, it just fits. A lot of the stuff fits if you filter out all the BS that's been pushed in it. So I don't really have any reason not to believe that Jesus wasn't a real man. Obviously, I have tons of evidence that Jesus wasn't God. So have absolutely no doubt he wasn't God, because it can't be a man to be God. And the rest of the story it seems to be fit to a guy that was seeking a real spiritual treasure and got a little caught up in ego, and he got killed for it because he couldn't let go of the ego. So it's really easy done. Anyway, that's my take on it. And I'm satisfied with my answer. If you're gonna have solid, something revolutionary thinking on it, then I'm really satisfied. I'm not gonna be swayed really, because I don't have any reason to think that any other than that. So, unless you can find an old story from Egypt where the whole story and the words he said and stuff were identical, then obviously I would probably back off on what I think. But that's my opinion. Obviously, it's just an opinion. It's not necessarily right, but I think it is a good analysis of it, a high level analysis, not in the details. But obviously, you'd be wrong. And personally, like I said before, I don't give a shit, because he wasn't that wise anyway. You know what I'm saying? So, end of the day, that's what I got to say. Later, folks.